How do you feel about this whole process?
It was very in-depth, which was excellent. And it was very specific to ensuring that the person that is going to use and purchase the product in the end is who we are selling to. And the fact that we went through all of these different experiences just created a really good idea around creating a brand that is going to be appealing and attractive to the person that is buying the product. So that's what I loved about the colors that we did, because yellow creates empathy, which is the number one thing that we want the brand handbook to convey when it comes to understanding that some people don't learn as easily, even when it comes to the most basic things like letters and numbers. And that's what was, I think, amazing about it, is to see that branding taken to a different level when it comes to going so in depth to the customer, because most of the time it's just focused on busy work that the designer can do as quickly as possible after they think they have the idea of what the brand is trying to convey, I guess. But the fact that you went very in depth to where you had the same understandings after those, 10, 12 hours on video chats that we spent talking about the customers. And that's why you were able to put, such passion into it as I did. You really were able to see the brand through my eyes, which was excellent.
What were some of your deepest challenges before getting into strategy and branding as well?
Definitely figuring out who specifically was our audience and our target market, because with Handbük, as we know, there are so many different people it can help. Fortunately, we've talked about elderly people in nursing homes, deaf and hard of hearing folks, people in hospital emergency rooms who suddenly can't speak because of an injury and they need help communicating, children that are both typical and I guess atypical is the new word, or autistic. And it's been excellent to know that out of all of these different people that Handbük can help, specifically, it is the caregiver that actually is going to be placing the product in that cart online. The child doesn't have a credit card. They're not going to be scanning online for something to help them count. So that's what was excellent in creating the most clarity, is that even though the child or the person that is learning is not always going to be the person that's actually purchasing the product. So it was excellent to go through the strategy process and to really understand that in the end, that my exact target market are these caregivers, are these teachers, and are the people that are looking to better the life of the person that's using it. And I think that was the biggest challenge, is to try to see things through those two lenses. It's not just a toy that I'm going to sell to a 5-year-old that he sees on TV when he's watching Nickelodeon, right? It's going to be something that would be, it needs to be advertised in a different way. And that's what was so excellent, because I had a very broad idea of who I wanted to help. But now it's like I can still help all of those people. It's about who's going to buy for those people. And those are the caregivers and people such as Megan McCarthy in the ideal customer that we came up with together.
Right. And so far, what were some of the things that you really liked about the strategy as we went into it? Like maybe were there some things that we discovered that you were not thinking about before the strategy?
So many things. And that's what was so excellent about the planning ahead, is it really took all the same ideas for the people that we were focusing on selling to. And we were like, well, what are things that they do on the weekend? Like, for example, one of the things that we thought one of the or people like Megan McCarthy do on weekends is she might attend conferences. And then that led us to think, well, what if one day we are able to, or I am able to set up a sort of like a workshop, and then where other autistic people or other people in the autistic community, instructors and caregivers, can come and learn about Handbük, in addition to being educated by somebody that we bring in from the outside. So ideas like that would have never come about if we hadn't started with the strategies in the beginning, filling out all of those worksheets or the spreadsheets, and figuring out, really getting into the heads of our target market, which was difficult at first. But once we really did it, it was really awesome to see the possibilities open up, like the online subscription program where we eventually want to have people come back, continue their education, and then with the goal being for them to learn independently. So Yeah, definitely. It created so many goals and made my dreams and aspirations even bigger.
Right. And so far regarding like the results, like where are you at right now after this whole exercise? What were some of the results, the impact that it had on your business so far?
It is now cohesive, and I now have it's a complete brand. Before, when I had named it Lotus, it just didn't feel right, like in my soul, and I knew it wasn't the right name for it. I created that name Lotus because I really relate a lot to the process that a lotus, goes through. But I realized that I came up with that 4 years ago, and it was not relevant to the brand. And so after this whole process, I have a relevant and cohesive brand, which is very important in creating that platform before I even bring a product around. And I like that it has built almost the anticipation for when I do come out with. And so that's where I've gone from, is having a name that's kind of scattered all over the place. People think of they used to think of a completely different target market, a completely different category when they heard the word Lotus. Now when they hear Handbük, it's excellent. That's the one thing that the SCORE mentors did say, that it was a very clever name, which meant a lot to me, because I think it is. And it just has taken the name Handbük and the brand. And the way that I like to explain it is, after going through this whole process with you and filling out all of these worksheets and spending all this time together and having you see it the same, is it, I almost see my brand as a person. Like, Handbük is almost like a person. They have their own identity. They have things that they like. They have it has his friends, its friend, you know what I mean? But I'd almost look at it as a person who has a personality, and I respect it as such. And that's what's awesome, is it went from being kind of this floating idea of, I have this amazing idea and this product, but if I don't have a quality brand and a name to represent it, it's nothing. And so that's what you've helped do, is to create the organization and the cohesiveness to where I'm able to do so many things.
What would be like the best advice you can give to a business owner who wants to, like, start the brand from your own learnings with this process as well?
That's crazy. I can actually give you a list form. Can I read you a list really quick?
Sure.
Actually answers that. It's just 10 things really quick that
Sure.
actually answer that question exactly. And that's the thing, is I know all of these things pretty much based on what you have done. So this list of 10 things kind of takes what you have taught me through this process, aside from what we talked about today. That's a whole other thing that blew my mind. So without that being thought about, this is what I've learned. First thing to consider is, who is your target market? Who is your first and second most ideal customer? Number two, how is that target market spending their time? How will they find out about your services? Specifically, this is my chef friend, and his company is called Our Table Eats. It's like a catering and mentoring company for chefs. So I'll just refer to it as OTE for now. So in the context, it's just OTE. Okay. When a customer contacts OTE for an inquiry or service, response time will be vital. What systems could be set in place to track these leads? Number four, how will you track current customers and their needs? Number five, file a fictitious business name. That's aside the fact. Number six, decide early on what type of business you want to develop, individual, LLC. 7, do you have a logo? Number 8, create social media platforms. And then I list them. YouTube, this could be huge for you, since people search how to cook things. You could potentially run a business out of your home and cook anything you want to. People would find you based on searching for you. Something to think about. 9, get social media content calendar started in Google Sheets. I've attached a copy, this and that. You can find endless examples. Just search calendar content. Number 10, put together a list of hashtags that are relevant to OTE. Create a spreadsheet of groups of 30 hashtags. 30 hashtags is the limit. Make sure your hashtags are good and not things like Insta like, Insta love, and Instagram. It's also best if you separate your hashtags into 10, 10, 10. 10 with high traffic, 10 with medium, and 10 with specifics.
I would say 5 high, 20 specific, and 5 low.
Yes, I have that in my new notes. So those pretty much are things that I really specifically learned through this process.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, would you, for example, like now, would you advise other business owners as well, if they are starting with this whole branding process? Like, would you advise them to go through the same structure as well, or?
Absolutely. Yes. When it comes to strategizing who your target market is, that as a process is absolutely vital. And that's the thing, is each one of those points takes time to completely dive into. So, and they're it's a loaded list, right? So the first most important thing is, who is your target market? Well, if somebody asks that, that's what you refer to. You need to figure out and go through that entire process, if that's what it means, to find out exactly who you're working with. So yeah, I would recommend absolutely the same process, if they're willing to take that time and dedication to do that. And that, I think, will prove a lot about the person, whether they're quick to make money or if they really do care about what's going in, the work that's going in behind their brand.
Right, right. Because I think, yeah, that's the challenge, is that a lot of business owners might come into the whole business game and they're thinking sales, revenue, etc., without really taking or paying attention to the customers, brand values, all these kind of things. And yeah, they end up maybe having something that looks good, as we say, but it doesn't perform well in the market, right? Because it doesn't have the levels of empathy to who we are serving.
Exactly. And without a customer, you don't really have a product, because it's not it's not really a product unless people are selling it, or you don't have something to sell. And I think that's one thing that business owners really forget, is it's about the people that you are selling to, because without them, nobody would be giving you a dime. And that's what I have loved about this process too, is that you have taken the whole marketing strategy to be relatable to the person. And it's not even about it. When we've gone through this process, the coolest thing is, if you were to have somebody pop into the conversation at any given time, they would never even guess that we're talking about a branding and marketing strategy. They would probably think that we were talking about, like, we were gossiping when we were going through the process of figuring out who Megan McCarthy likes on social media and what they do on the weekends. That's not something that a branding and marketing company usually does. So getting specific enough to find all those things, it was incredible and very, very useful. And it's going to save time. That's the thing that's awesome. It's going to save time in the long run. It was such an emotional experience, and I'm like super not an emotional person. But like when you sent me the first branding identity, like the first PDF, like, it's just crazy. Every time I get an email from you and I know it's like something that work that you and your team have done, it's like this feeling of like anticipation. And I get so excited. And so like I waited to get home to open it because I wanted to do it with Fano. And so like it was crazy because like tears just like came to my eyes and I just like covered my face like as soon as I saw the first yellow handbook, like the yellow background with like the white. And that's another reason I knew like that was it, because I just like, I didn't have that reaction with the other two. And I stopped and I was like, well, is it because this was just the first time you saw your brand like expressed in brand form or in logo form professionally? But I don't think it was. It really was that the yellow and the happy face. And it just, you brought together so many different aspects of what I wanted to express with the logo. And it's just so beautifully done, because the first thing that I get from everybody is that that's amazing, because with the happy face, communication makes people happy. And that's one thing that my coworker said, is that it doesn't, I was kind of concerned, like we had discussed, that it might look a little bit childish, but that was only my opinion. And it's so neat to see that others and more professional people's opinion is that it's, what does it do? Why is there a smiley face? It's because it's about education and instructing people on how to talk. Without talking, without communication, there's really nothing. And so that's what was awesome, because you just take a look at it immediately and you want to know more and like why people are happy. So that's been the coolest thing. And the only other thing I think I would want to say is just a huge shout out to your team. I would have like loved to be a fly on the wall, like in that room, just like listening to like ideas and stuff. It would have like just made me like, but like that's like for me, like it's all, thank you for everything.
Thanks, Carissa.
All right, bye.